Well, here we are. There's James Baker. This is Peter Schrappen, your MC this evening. During the day, I am NMTA's Vice President and Director of Government Affairs, and for this lovely afternoon, I get to sit inside your own living room as I come to you live from our studios, which might look a little familiar to you. These are the same digs. I see there Doug and his team, where we did the Seattle Boat Show Connected for seemed like 2 weeks, but it really was a truncated show. But what a fantastic show that was. And we came back, they invited us back, believe it or not, and we're gonna hopefully entertain you for the next couple hours as we put together a pretty good show, I think. And I wrote down kind of the purpose. It's a meaningful engagement connecting members with staff to better understand where we are with the Northwest Marine Trade Association and the larger boating industry. And James, I'm gonna stop blathering and say hi to you. You serve as Seattle Boat Company's Vice President for the last, I had to check my math here, 24 years. I'm out of fingers and toes on that. So, but also you serve as NMTA's Board Chair. So thank you for your volunteer service on behalf of the 628 members. And what do you have planned for this evening, James?
Well, first and foremost, I hope everybody's staying healthy and safe. And thanks for the big intro there, Peter. I'm the current board chair, and I get the pleasure of kicking off the second, can't believe we're saying it, the second virtual NMTA annual meeting. So just want to thank everybody for taking your personal time and joining us today. And so as I was sitting back reflecting on the last 12 months of the NMTA, one word came to mind, and that was proud. I think we should all be proud to be members of this association. We should all be proud of the staff. We should all be proud of the members. We should be proud of our industry. And lastly, and most importantly, I think we should be proud of all the accomplishments the NMTA has done in the last 12 months. Today's meeting is a time to reflect and celebrate. So sit back, tune in, enjoy, and most importantly, be proud. And don't forget to send in your membership renewal. Just a little plug there for you. So we're going to start off the meeting by hearing from a few members. So we're going to start it off. I'm going to hand it over to the incoming board chair, Mark Helgen from Union Marine. Take it over, Mark.
Hey, thank you, James. I appreciate it. You know, we at Union Marine have been members of the NMTA for over 30 years, joining in the mid-1980s. And NMTA has just been a great working partner ever since, helping us and marine businesses in the whole local area navigate legal and political issues, and not to mention the awesome job they do at the Seattle Boat Show. Having our team members involved with different committees and going to different meetings, they're able to better understand the challenges internally that face the industry externally. So NMTA really adds a lot for that. Also, this last year, with NMTA's immediate immersion into the COVID crisis, they were able to quickly identify our businesses as essential and mitigate that closure, which still hurt, but it could have been so much worse without NMTA. So thank you, NMTA staff, NMTA, the organization, for identifying problems in our industry early, quickly, and making smart strategic moves to address them. So I'm very excited about the next couple of years, James. And everybody there, thank you for letting me take a few minutes to talk about NMTA. But even more important, I get to introduce Kelly Hawley, the Boat Show Committee Chair and of Tom and Jerry's up north. And Kelly, I'll hand it over to you.
Can you hear me now?
Sounds great, Kelly.
Somebody muted me. Sorry about that. So yeah, hey, thank you. I appreciate that introduction. You know, since being an NMTA member, it's been pretty interesting. When I first started and joining the organization, I really didn't know anything about them except Boat Show. You know, how do I get more space? You know, and what's it going to cost? And what's going on with the Boat Show? That's all I really knew about it, was just Boat Show. Once George kind of recruited me and talked me into coming on board the boat show committee, I have to say my eyes were opened. There's a lot more to a boat show and a lot more to NMTA than boat shows. They tackle so many other issues that that we have to, overcome every day. It's amazing, the hours that the staff puts in to help its members out. A lot of times we go home and they're still working. There's been some pretty major things with COVID, getting us back open. When that hit, we just didn't know what the heck was going to happen. So I have to applaud Peter and George and the staff for just taking the initiative and going ahead and just fighting for us and allowing us to get back to work. So we really appreciated that. Those are things that a lot of the members don't realize that's going on within the organization and within that office. A lot of big decisions. When COVID hit, they had to make the decision, unfortunately, to let a couple people go. Again, this is with the members in mind, and also move into another office. Luckily, they didn't have to go very far, but it saved a lot of money, and in the long run, it helps the members, go further and allows the staff to do more for us with the money that they have. And again, Peter and George and everybody just went to work and didn't let off. As I was on there, I learned a little bit more, and then we were able to go onto the health trust. That was a big plus for us. It helped me retain my employees. It gives us something to offer new employees, where a lot of places, they're just not offering health insurance. It's affordable. And the nice thing about it is I don't have to worry about illnesses and stuff. They can go in and get checked out, get back to work, and I know that they're covered. So retention is a big thing for us. We're a good sized dealership, but we're still a small staff, and we rely on all our employees here to do their daily task. It's what makes us run. So we appreciate the health trust. There's just so many things that I'm appreciative of. And like I said, since I've been on the committee, my eyes just have been opened. And I think, if you're wondering if your membership is worth it or not, believe me, we don't pay enough. So there's so many things that happen that we just don't see. It's all behind the scenes mostly, and you hear about a lot of it, but there's lots of stuff that you don't hear about. So if you're on that verge of thinking if you should renew or not, man, I urge you, don't give up on the NMTA. They do wonderful things for us, and I appreciate every one of them. So anyhow, look forward to the rest of the meeting, and appreciate you allowing me to say something, and we'll see you a little later.
Thanks, Kelly. Yeah, thank you. Wow, and it doesn't get any better than that to hear from volunteer leadership. The time, talent, and treasure those three gentlemen have invested in our organization is boundless. I really, on behalf of the staff, we want to say thank you to Mark, Kelly, and James. And we're going to actually press pause on the live accolades, and we're going to hear from Andrea Parentazzi, who is the Vice President of the Recreational Boating Association of Washington. I got the good fortune to interview Andrea earlier today. Let's hear from Andrea.
I'd like to welcome Andrea Parentazzi to NMTA's annual meeting. Andrea, welcome to the NMTA annual meeting.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
And where are you right now?
San Juan Islands, Friday Harbor. I think we picked the best 2 weeks to come up here.
Well, that's great. And thanks for doing this pre-record with me. What is RBAW for the uninitiated, and what do you all specialize in?
Thank you. Recreational Boating Association of Washington. So been around for about 60 years, focused solely on recreational boaters in Washington. So exciting them, making sure we have appropriate regulations, do our best to just make sure it's fun to boat in Washington. And if you've ever been to Susha, that's kind of our claim to fame.
Yeah, I knew that.
Yeah.
You donated that to the state park system when you first got off the ground,
Exactly.
about
Exactly.
50 some odd years ago.
There you go, 60 plus years.
I have enjoyed working with RBAW through the years, Andrea, and I've enjoyed working with you through the years. We have a number of victories to brag about. Can you talk about a few of the highlights that NMTA has led on, along with RBAW right there with us?
Sure, would love to. So many of them, obviously. A few that come to mind over the past few years. Well, starting last year in May, ARBA and NMTA worked really hard to reopen recreational boating as we were going, through the COVID challenges. So that I think was a great win to get people Pacific Northwest socially distanced on their boat. Most recently, we've worked a lot on the watercraft excise tax, which the partnership between the two of us on that was significant. NMTA's position, ARBA's advocacy, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but over 13,000 people interested in recreational boating jumped in and gave their opinion on that, which I think made a huge difference. And so I think we've put it to bed for now. So I think those are the two that pop into my head.
Andrew, you've actually ran the numbers on that excise tax win. What does that mean to boaters in a boating business? How much money was saved because of that win?
Yeah, well, when we think about our individual and yacht club members, just some quick back of the envelope math, we think over $3,000 over a 5-year period on your average size boat was saved with the existing. Remember, it's a 0.5%. It was going to double to 1%. So if you think about the NMTA annual membership and the ARBA annual membership, obviously supporting our organizations to defend boaters' rights, we think is a great cost benefit analysis than thousands of dollars we would have had to take out of our pockets.
Well, this wasn't the first time we've worked together. Before your and my time, we worked together on mandatory boater education. We worked on derelict vessels, invasive species.
Exactly.
It'd be a long list. We'd be here all night talking. Well, we're not going to, but I'd like to know what's next for ARBA.
Oh gosh. Well, first and foremost is Lake Bay. We've been working really hard for the past couple years during a really hard time of a pandemic to raise money to purchase Lake Bay and get that back to the jewel that it is for the South Sound. We've worked really hard with DNR, and I think there'll be some great news coming shortly on that. So Lake Bay, always working on boater safety. We're very supportive of that, but we don't want overbearing regulations or possibly things that don't actually support the safety of boaters. So focused on that. Gosh, what else? Those are the two that are probably top of mind for me.
Yeah, right now when I think of ARBA, I think of Lake Bay Marina for sure. And where can people learn more about ARBA?
Thanks for asking. So you can go to our website, arba.org, tell you a lot of information about where we came from, what we're doing, and we're looking forward to growing our membership too. So if you're a member of a yacht club that's not a member of ARBA or an individual boater that wants to join, there's a Join Us button on there. And we look forward to your support, and we look forward to supporting you.
Thanks, Andrea. For the exchange of 20 some odd dollars for an ARBA membership or NMTA's $500, I don't know if there's a better deal in town.
I don't think there is. It's probably the best value in boating.
Right on. Well, it's so much fun to see you, Andrea. Take care out there and enjoy the water.
Thank you. Thanks a lot. Thanks for having me.
All right. Back to you there, George.
All right. Nice job, Peter. Thank you, Andrea. Well, welcome. My name is George Harris, President and CEO of Northwest Marine Trade Association, here in this studio with Peter. Thank you, Andrea. Really nice to be here with you, Peter, a veteran.
Yeah, I got to show you around the room a little bit.
Yeah, 42 episodes of Seattle Boat Show Live, 34 continuous hours at Boat Show TV.
It's been a fun labor of love.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, we've had a really good time. We've got some pretty special things planned this evening. We haven't really gone through the agenda too much, but up ahead we've got some awards we give out. What do you say we give out some awards?
I think we've got some people that deserve some recognition, so let's do some awards.
Okay, so ladies and gentlemen, I wish we had like the Academy Awards music or the red carpet, or at the very least I should have slipped back into my tuxedo that I wore for Seattle Boat Show Connect as I look over at Doug here, who had to endure me for those 34 hours. But yes, the first award that we're going to give out, Logan, is Bob Donegan, the Latham Goebel Award. It's a prestigious award. It is one of the biggest, it's the biggest award we give to a non-boating person. It's for the individual outside the industry who has contributed the most to the marine industry in the past year, and actually I would say years. In this case, we awarded this accomplishment a few years ago, and we didn't have a chance to roll that out the last annual meeting, but we're going to do that today. Shane, I'm looking over at you. Can we get Bob up? There he is. Hey, Bob.
Hi there, Bob. Welcome.
You're on mute, Bob. Party foul. There he
Unmuted
is. No, it's a delight to see you, Bob. Thanks for having lunch with me. I had the unenviable task of having lunch with Bob Donegan on the waterfront and getting to chew the fat with you for an hour or so. And I just am so grateful to have your friendship and just so thankful for all the leadership you have shown the Seattle Boat Show through the years. Oftentimes, believe it or not, the city of Seattle isn't excited about the Seattle Boat Show as NMTA staff is or as you are, and you've always been there helping us connect the dots and meet with the right person at the right time with the right information. It was a very easy decision for our board to give you this award. So just thank you, Bob. And I think you have the award right there, right?
Indeed, I polished it up today so everyone can see it. It's only appropriate that we should be talking today. I spent most of the day in our offices on the west end of Pier 54, where the Kitsap Fast Ferry from Bremerton was docking, and the passenger-only ferry was running to West Seattle. There were sailboats and powerboats out on Elliott Bay. Kevin Clark was out testing the Argosy ships for the Blake Island runs this weekend. Paul LaMarche from Let's Go Sailing will be bringing the sailboats back to the waterfront next week. And because it's a beautiful, sunny Seattle day, at our stores at Coulon Park tonight, the seafood bar in the Kid Valley, over half the people who come to dinner will arrive by boat. If you live in Seward Park or Mercer Island or Bellevue, and you need a place to take your kids, you jump on your sailboat or your kayak or your water ski boat or your fishing boat and you head down there. So it's a great honor that you would recognize Ivers and our support for the marine industry in the Northwest, and thanks for being so thoughtful of us.
Well, Bob, I thought you were going to say it was a perfect day because it's National Poem in Your Pocket Day. I thought maybe perhaps you'd have a poem for us as I put you on the spot.
Well, I just think of my happy condition surrounded by acres of clams. That's the only poem I can think of today.
That's great. Well, it's also National Shrimp Scampi Day. Has that ever been on the menu, do you think, at Ivers?
I am headed up to the Mukilteo restaurant to deliver new menus for tonight, and one of the items on the menu is shrimp scampi.
Wow.
There you go.
Fate. The Park Eye are very happy right now. And I actually was doing some lobbying yesterday, George, with Bob. I was asking for 2 items to be put on the menu, and I'm going to put Bob even more on the spot now. And a year from now, Bob, it would mean the world to me to see buffalo shrimp on the menu, and garlic steamed mussels that are brought out with a little bit of fanfare. So that's where I'm going to leave things with you, Bob.
So, Peter, we were having trouble finding where you harvest buffalo shrimp. Are they on the prairie or are they in the ocean?
My people will contact your people.
Thank you, George. Thank you, Peter.
Thank you, Bob.
Thank you, NMTA.
Appreciate all the support.
Thanks, Bob. Bob is a tough act to follow, and we're going to try to do that right here as we hand off the Nate Bonner Award. I got to know Nate when I first started at NMTA. He was a rising leader before he was tragically killed on a freak boating accident on Lake Washington, and that inspired us. Nate's spirit inspired us to award this special accomplishment to the rising star, the young leader, and it was a very easy consensus for Logan Brown to get this award. Logan is the new president of Marine Float, so congratulations on that new title, Logan. And just to share a small story, Logan and I went to DC on December 8, 2018, thinking that old Peter Schrapp would be the one showing Logan how to lobby in our nation's capital, but as we made our way through the hallways, I found myself taking notes to see Logan in action. So impressed by the message, the connecting points that you put together, Logan, through our time together in DC, and I've just enjoyed your friendship through the years. And congratulations, Logan, on this big award.
Well, thank you. Am I supposed to show it here?
Yeah, that sounds good. And
you go.
if you have a few remarks now, Logan, to deliver, this will be now the time to share. If not, that's totally cool as well.
I just like to say I'm honored to be given the award in honor of Nate Bonner. I did not know him, but in looking at it, I was actually concerned that I was getting a little old for this award. I have 2 kids, so I am feeling older and older every day. But I think coincidentally, I'm 33 right now, and I think that's the age Nate was when he passed, and he also had a wife and 2 kids. So it's an honor to be recognized, and I think the real answer to how I've been able to be a young leader is having people around me that were willing to put me in a place like Peter did when we were in DC, or as Wendell Stroud did as the founder of our company here, but a place where I was given the opportunity at my age, which I think it says a lot about those folks, and I just appreciate everybody, and thank you for the award.
Oh, it's certainly our pleasure, Logan. I look forward to continuing to work with you on the Government Affairs Committee, where you and I can be found every first Thursday of the month at 10 a.m. And I'll see you in a couple days, Logan. What do you say?
All right.
All
Congratulations,
right.
Logan.
George, I'm going to let you hand off the Jerry Bryant Award.
Yeah, thanks, Peter. I'm going to do the final award this afternoon. It's called the Jerry Bryant Award, and Jerry is recognized as perhaps the person that founded the NMTA in 1947. So this goes our highest award that goes to somebody from within the marine industry. And I see Michael Collins on the screen. There he is, the former co-editor of 48 North Sailing Magazine. And I've had a chance to work closely with Michael in so many ways over the last decade or so. 48 North has always taken good care of the Seattle Boat Show, editorial and advertising. And then Michael started something called the Northwest Paddling Festival with a few others. And then NMTA took that on. He thought that would be a good spot for the paddling festival. And then most recently, since you left the magazine, Michael, you've been a superstar volunteer for NMTA. As you know, I like to say a special agent for NMTA, nothing that Michael Collins won't do. So it was an easy decision for the NMTA board. Do you have your award with you there, Michael?
I just happen to have it here in the car with me.
Excellent. Jerry Bryant Award. All right. Well done, Michael.
It's an honor to receive this award. Been to lots of annual meetings, watching some of the superstars of the industry receive them, and feel very honored to be included in that group. Certainly enjoyed promoting boating my entire life. I've was an NMTA member since back in the early 80s with 48 North, and then became an NMTA member with Sea Kayaker magazine also. Both magazines worked hard at spreading the word of kayaking, sailing, having fun on the water, and being safe. Through that, I'd been kind of coerced by the sailing community to start an organization called Sailing Renaissance, which Latitude 38 had started in the Bay. And we kind of started getting together and how do we promote boating, promote sailing in the Northwest. And about third meeting in, John Thorburn showed up and talked to us about the Grow Boating Committee and the Grow Boating Funds from NMTA. And although we've been members for years, we're kind of oblivious to it. Went to the next meeting, and that was the end of the Sailing Renaissance, and all of the energy went into Grow Boating, and then from there getting in the Boat Show Committee and trying to be as active as possible in NMTA and all the good you guys do for the boating community.
Well, thank you so much, Michael. I think we could use many more members as energetic and supportive of NMTA as you've been. Congratulations.
Thank you.
You know, I think that the entire Collins family deserves an award, I believe, at some part.
Yeah, so we'll see another Collins name when we look at the NMTA staff roster in a little bit. Joan Collins, another extraordinary special agent with NMTA. Hi there, Joan.
Wall to celebrate the big
in the driver's seat.
Yeah. And you are parked, right, Joan?
Yes, we are parked.
That's what they all say. That's great to see you. I was lobbying yesterday on an issue, and the mayor of Kenmore, David Baker, longtime friend of the association, someone we go to DC with. He's also an Uber driver and was on Uber with his video camera on while he was driving, talking to the King County Council. I'm like,
not a good look, Mayor.
That's something. Let's talk a little bit about the President's Report, George. This is always a highlight of my work here to hear where we are with the industry. This is not your first President's Report. This is not your first NMTA annual meeting. This is your 21st annual meeting, and I want to say it's your 11th President's Report at the helm of the Northwest Marine Trade Association. And I just, on behalf of the staff, what an incredible honor it is to be working for you, with you, on behalf of the industry. The benefit of the doubt that you share with staff, the just the freedom that we have to excel is something that doesn't happen with other supervisors I've had, and it just really means the world to me. And I'm looking forward to hearing, George, where we are with the industry.
All right, well, thank you. That's very kind. And you're right, we have an awesome staff, and we have had an amazing year here in 2020 and 2021. And so I'm going to put up some slides. Our bylaws say that once a year I'm supposed to do a report out to the membership of what's happened. Over the years, if you've been to one of these before, sometimes I get myself in trouble, try and cover too much information. I'm going to try and break things up into 3-month chunks going back to the first quarter of 2020. So right there is our mission, growing boating in the Pacific Northwest. I like to say that our board, our boat show committee, our staff, every time we walk into the office or go on to a Zoom meeting these days, we're focused on getting more people into boating or getting the folks that do have boats to use them more often. So it's our annual meeting. Big shout out to our sponsors, Wells Fargo Advisors, Capital Benefit Services, and Fisheries Supply. And this year I'm going to have Amina from Wells Fargo Advisors, Will from Capital Benefit Services, and Alex from Fisheries Supply actually join me for part of the presentation. So shout out to Mark, Kelly, and Andrea for those testimonials, and then to our award recipients Bob, Logan, and Michael. So we're off to a good start. And then our kind of our headliner tonight is going to be Frank Hugelmeyer, President of the National Marine Manufacturers Association. And really looking forward to spending some time with Frank tonight and having a little conversation with him when he's done. And we don't have a live chat tonight, but if you wanted to send in a question to myself or Peter, you could email it to info@nmta.net. Again, info@nmta.net. You could send a message, and that message will get to Peter and I if you wanted to have something come up at the end of the meeting. So I love to say the NMTA is powered by thank you. So I want to start by thanking of our Board of Trustees, and the slide up right now shows our Executive Committee. When we heard from James Baker earlier, his 2-year term as board chair is going to expire on June 30th, and then Mark Helgen from Union Marine is going to take over for his 2 years at the helm. And then right behind Mark will be Alex Sutter. We are board chair in 4 years. And this is really evidence of a healthy organization. When we have a succession plan like this, we know who our volunteer leaders are going to be for the next 8 years. You can see Paul Sorensen from BST Associates. He's going to be our board chair in 8 years. So it's a big commitment to be part of the NMTA leadership, and we really, really appreciate that. So that's the Executive Committee, and then we've got the rest of our Board of Trustees here, a couple that are going to stand for re-election. I'll mention that in the next second. So if we've got Alex Sutter in the room, why don't we have Alex come on in? And then there's a picture of Joe Klein, another example of a board member going above and beyond. Joe is a great sailor, and he volunteered to be part of one of our Seattle Boat Show photo shoots. So that's a picture of Joe there. And then we've been meeting on Zoom now since March of 2020, and we were actually ready for that because in the interest of having more geographic diversity to our board, we updated some of our board policies about 18 months ago that said board members could attend by video conference. So we've got Clint over in Colville, we've got Brian Krantz up in the San Juan Islands, we've got Paul Sorensen from Anacortes, and that's how we are getting board members to participate now. And then, of course, COVID has changed that. But I would encourage members to think about running for the board for next year or the year after. You don't have to attend in person. Right now, we're not attending in person. And so there's Alex. So, hey there, Alex. How you doing?
Hey, George. Good. How are you?
Terrific. We're off to a good start tonight. You are a super supporter of the NMTA. You're a sponsor tonight. You're on the NMTA Executive Committee. You're on the NMTA Board. And you're on the NMTA Health Trust Board. And your office is right below our office. So I see you all the time.
I sign a lot of checks.
That's right. Just a little inside information. Any check over $500 from the NMTA needs 2 signatures. So it's lots of check signing by Alex. So I've got up on the screen, Alex, 6 candidates that want to serve on the NMTA board. Ballots will be available May 1. Any message to these candidates, what it's like to serve on the board?
Well, first, I'd like to say it's really cool that every year we have multiple candidates for each position. I don't, in my prior life, I worked for boards, and you just don't see that many people volunteer. So I think it's a really good sign of the health of the NMTA. Advice for people on the NMTA board. George leads by consensus, and it's a really cool way for the NMTA to work. And I would also say it goes a lot faster than you realize. I can't believe how quickly I'm supposed to be the board chair. Mm-hmm. So enjoy your time on it. It's as much work as you want to make it, and I think the more you put in it, the more you'll definitely get out of it. So that's it.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Alex. You have a great business, and you appreciate your sponsorship tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks.
All right. So if this was an in-person meeting, I'd ask our staff to maybe come up to the stage, and we'd line everybody up from their tenure at NMTA. But if you average the length of time that we've had our awesome staff, the average tenure at NMTA is 7 years. So it's just a completely dedicated staff. I can't say enough about these people: Joan Collins, Katie Grossclose, Jennifer Higgins, Karsten McIntosh, Katie McPhail, my studio partner tonight, Peter Schrappen, and Alicia Wortel. And we've really reinvented ourselves as a team this past year with COVID, and I'll talk about some of that here as we move into the presentation. So thank you so much, NMTA staff. You guys are awesome. So just a little setup to our sponsors again. We already heard from Alex at Fisheries, and then as we get going here, I'm going to invite in Will Compton from Capital Benefit Services in a couple slides. So let's go back in the Wayback Machine to the first quarter of 2020. We had the Seattle Boat Show 2020, and I like to think that was one of the last major events in Seattle or even the Northwest. And we just missed COVID just right. We had great attendance. Everybody got in, everybody got out. As far as I know, everybody was healthy. And then, within 4 to 6 weeks, we started to read about COVID, and the world really changed for us. We had the foresight back then to say, let's do an economic impact study on the Seattle Boat Show. And what we learned from it, from the help of BST Associates and Paul Sorensen, Paul ended up surveying all 389 member businesses that participated, all 9,000 people that bought e-tickets to the show, and just the cost benefit for member businesses was 24 to 1 for. It was really even shocking for me with all the Seattle Boat Shows I've run to see it that high. So for every $1 a business invested into the Seattle Boat Show, they got $24 back in return. And believe it or not, it was actually a little higher for the accessory businesses than the boat displays. And then the public, the people that bought the admission tickets, they rated us 4.1 on a scale of 5 if they'd recommend the show, or a 10 next year, which is an excellent rating. So the Seattle Boat Show, live and well in 2020, and I can't wait to do another in-person show in 2022. So more good news as we turned into first quarter of 2020 was the NMTA Health Trust. So maybe this is the time when Will Compton could come on in with Capital Benefits Association. But we have 130, hey there, Will, we've got about 130 NMTA members that use the Health Trust. And that's nearly 5,000 employees and dependents that count on us for their health insurance, affordable, high-quality health insurance. And when we went out with renewals at the end of 2019, Will's team came back to our members and presented only a 1% rate increase. And Will introduced me to a term called healthcare inflation a few years ago. And I would say, in general, we've been able to stay below the industry standard for healthcare inflation. So how do you guys do that, Will?
What a great setup, George. Thanks. I mean,
Welcome.
For starters, I didn't know that you and Peter were so polished back there as newscastmen. You guys look perfect for the part back there. So thanks again, George, for having me. George, I've been involved with the NMTA Health Trust since inception back in 2014, and really years prior And I would just say that, it's an honor to be a part of this. I mean, Kelly, who led off this meeting, is a trustee. He spoke very well about the trust itself. Alex Sutter is also in the program. So we're thankful for the members who believe in the program, George. I mean, to answer your question, there's really no secret sauce to this, but I will just give out this little token that it's really strength in numbers. I mean, health insurance, as we all know, is complicated, it's confusing, it's expensive, and really the mousetrap that we're building and really trying to be successful with is aggregating the members together and going out and negotiating on the behalf of everyone as one whole versus each individual company at a time. So yeah, George, I mean, again, we're thrilled to be a part of this. We value this relationship very much, and we thank all those who are participating in the trust.
So Capital Benefit Services, you don't just handle the NMTA Health Trust, you also manage some other large association health plans, the Master Builders Association, the Building Industry Association of Washington, and I think it's the same for them, but if somebody's interested in becoming a part of the health trust, do they need to wait till the end of their current plan, or can they contact you now?
Good question, George. Yeah, common misconception. I mean, it's not complicated, much like your car insurance. If you wanted to move in the middle of the year and shop around, that's what you do with health insurance as well. It's obviously a bit more personal with health insurance. It means something, but to answer your question, George, no. I mean, we're open for business. We're always eager to help a member. And so to answer your question, George, no. I mean, anybody who wanted to take a shot at the trust to see if it's a good fit can do that whenever they please. And we're very easy to work with, we like to think, and very upfront. If we're a good fit, we'll tell you, and if we're not, we'll also tell you that as well.
And I just put a slide up with Will's contact information, and then starting point for health trust participation is 2 employees?
That's correct, George, yes.
2 employees, all right. So that's Will's office phone number, that's Will's email. So if the NMTA Health Trust sounds interesting, get in touch with Will. And we'll really appreciate all the support all these years, my friend. And thanks for being a sponsor tonight.
Our pleasure, George. Thanks for having me.
You bet. All right. So that was kind of the good news part of 2020. Later in the first quarter, then our world sort of started to change with COVID. And it was on March 23rd that Governor Inslee announced the Stay Home, Stay Healthy order. And there's a picture. We were accustomed to those back in March and April. I mean, was it weekly or sometimes 2 or 3 times a week when the governor was giving us updates about COVID? So that was when 2020 really changed for me. And then the first thing that happened is all of the businesses were closed unless you were designated as essential. So you might want to put the camera on Peter here, Shane. Peter and I received a call from the governor's office 3 days before the 23rd, and they said to Peter, we need your help at NMTA designating what sectors of your membership should be designated essential as in the commercial space. And Peter was quick to point out that it's not only commercial that's essential, it's recreational that's essential. You can't just walk away from a recreational marina. Those boats need service. You can't just leave these boats sit for 4, 6, 8, 10 weeks or something like that. So in the words of advocacy, when we're always promoting NMTA, we advocate for the member businesses. On March 23rd, NMTA, Peter Schrappen, went to bat for your businesses. And basically on our word, marinas, fuel docks, boatyards, marine repair were designated as essential on March 23rd. So those businesses were able to stay open and keep those properties safe, healthy, up and running. And then you can compare that to other states where they didn't have the foresight to do that, and people had no access to their private boats for weeks and weeks, or in some cases months. So I'm really proud of what we did, what Peter did, to get that essential designation for recreational boating businesses early in the Stay Home, Stay Healthy order. As a backdrop, you can see what the Stay Home, Stay Healthy order did to boat sales. We started to see boat sales decline in March. You can see the March bar graph there in orange down. And so we had a great start to 2020, but that all changed in March with the Stay Home, Stay Healthy order, and new boat sales for the first quarter were down 1.8%. So let's move into second quarter of 2020, and I've got in red there, uncertainty, all caps in red. It's hard to remember what that felt like back in April, May, when it just felt like the whole world was in free fall, whether it was, your business, your member business, the NMTA, my family, my extended family, my community. It was just uncertainty. And one of the things that was going on, there was a lot of entities that were wanting to be helpful. There was just so much information swirling around. My email inbox was never more full. And like I said, I think it was a lot of people trying to be helpful, but there was just too much information. So we started putting together a weekly COVID-19 update where our staff would read and vet all of the content that was coming in, whether that was coming in from an organization that we're a member of, or maybe the CDC or the governor's office. We were kind of collating it, making a Reader's Digest, easy to use email that you could read. And we started doing that weekly. And I think we did that for about 18 weeks. So I think that was a really good example of value-added work by NMTA, and Peter was a big part of that. So then the next thing that happened was, one of the metaphors I like to use for 2020 was, I felt like we were having one foot on the gas and one foot on the brake at the same time. So people recognized pretty quickly that boating or any type of outdoor recreation was a great thing to do during COVID, but it was really unclear. We were getting really mixed messages from the governor's office, from City of Seattle, on if it was okay to go boating. So our Grow Boating Committee jumped into action, and they dedicated $25,000 for a digital advertising campaign called Open for Boating. So we let Western Washington, we let the Northwest know it was okay to use your boat. And actually the state agencies, Fish and Wildlife, Washington State Parks, they were happy that we were amplifying their messages and being really clear, because we have a great reach to boaters, how you could go boating safely during the stay home, stay healthy order. So I think that was a big accomplishment that I'm real proud of in 2020. And then, like I said, there was a lot of confusion about what was open, what was closed, particularly in the San Juan Islands. And so we started something in partnership with Mark Bunzel and the Wagoner Cruising Guide. Peter and Mark co-hosted, ended up co-hosting 42 live webinars last year called Seattle Boat Show Live, and information about what launch ramps are open, what fishing regulations are going on, what are the changes with marine state parks, what pump out facilities are open. And then as things settled down with COVID, they were able to move into more traditional educational topics like, maintaining your diesel engine or bottom paint or something like that. But we've had great viewership. My calculation, over 42 episodes in season 1 is nearly 10,000 viewers, 10,000 boaters tuned in for that. So I think growing boating, getting the message out that it was okay to go boating was another really important thing that NMTA did. So the next real milestone for me was, and great story was, we're coming out of the stay home, stay healthy order, and Governor Inslee was getting ready to reopen businesses in what he called phase 1. So Peter and I were in constant contact with the governor's office staff and Commerce, and we knew that maybe we were on the bubble for consideration for being open into phase 1. And we knew the auto dealers were really working hard at being included into phase 1. And it was the Friday before May 5th when the governor made the announcement. Peter came into my office, and it looked like he'd been run over by a truck, because the governor had just made the announcement that for phase 1 it was going to be auto dealers but not boat dealers or boat brokers. So that afternoon, that night, we stayed at the office late. We kind of put together our plan, and we doubled down, tripled down, quadrupled down on how we are going to, there's no risk of being too annoying with the media or the governor's office or Commerce. So we just doubled down, called in every favor we could, accessed everybody we could. And through all of that, Como News found out what we were working on, and I was able to do an interview with Como News Friday night. It aired all day Saturday, all day Sunday, or frequently on Saturday and Sunday. And then what do you know, Peter gets a text message from Commerce that morning that we're in. Boat dealers and boat brokers are going to be included in phase 1, and I'm really proud of that. I think if we wouldn't have done that work, if NMTA wouldn't have done that work, our dealers and brokers would have had to wait another 6 or 8 weeks to be open in phase 2. And a big part of it, I think, in our message is the seasonality of our member businesses. So good job, Peter. Thank you very much. And we got it done for phase 1. So then we took the Anacortes Boat and Yacht Show live. We postponed it to June. I think as you look back, the show was originally scheduled for May. Naively, we thought back then, like many of us did, that surely COVID will be past us by the end of June. But we picked some dates on the calendar for end of June. We got to mid-June. There wasn't a chance to do an in-person show, so we went virtual. And I am really proud of NMTA. We roll up our sleeves and we figure out how to do things. And we're all very comfortable with Zoom now, but we experimented. I felt like we were on the cutting edge with open Zoom meetings. We had 32 dealers and brokers participate. We had a modest advertising budget, but we came together as a group, NMTA staff and those 32 businesses, and we put together a great event. Really proud of it, what we learned, but it wasn't a huge home run in terms of attendance, so I'll admit that. But a lot of really good experimentation, and it really set us up for what we did in Seattle Boat Show Connected in January. So we learned a lot. So finally, in the second quarter of 2020, boat sales were down 5%. You can see that in the bar graph there. They were starting to recover in June, but not quite enough to get us into the plus category for the second quarter. So as we move into the third quarter, that's when the NMTA put together our 2021 budget, and we approved what I'll call an unprecedented budget for NMTA. Our plan was to, if needed, spend up to 40% of the NMTA reserves. So our board is made up of business owners. So the idea of running an organization at a loss, not to mention a big loss for 12 months, was really a tough thing for some of our board members. That said, you know, the people that went before me, that's what the reserve's for, the rainy day fund, and this was the ultimate rainy day. We recognized that the budget would likely change and we'd have to be nimble and adaptive throughout the year. But the board did not want to hunker down, you know, I guess you could say, reduce staffing and be overly risk averse and not be able to do the things that we've done this past year. So in the end, I'll mention this a little later in the slide deck, but right now our projected year end is we will only have spent 20% of our reserves in the rainy day fund. So I think if that is the worst rainy day that NMTA has seen in 74 years, that's pretty impressive. Well, one of the things we did for some austerity or fiscal discipline is we right-sized to a smaller NMTA office. Easy, it's just one door to the east as you come up the same stairs that you always have for nearly 40 years. We moved into about 1,200 square feet, and we've gone into kind of an open concept office. Nobody has a private office anymore. We've got 5 workstations where we call them hotel desks, where you put in your laptop, wipe it down, and we share space. And then this NMTA office is staffed every day. We've got 2 people in the office every day. And then we updated our phone system, so when all of us are working from home, we can take those calls from home. So a big savings for NMTA by being able to move into a slightly smaller office space. And then one of the things that really struck me in the third quarter was the optimism for a traditional in-person Seattle Boat Show. I mean, I literally had members, and Katie McPhail, our show director, will, talk about this too, or could talk about this, is we literally had dealers, accessory manufacturers, retailers literally pleading with us that you cannot cancel the in-person Seattle Boat Show for 2021. I mean, they were, I felt sort of looking past the seriousness of COVID, that they wanted it so badly. And as I said earlier, I've run a lot of Seattle Boat Shows, and maybe I underestimated how important, how valuable the Seattle Boat Show was for our members. So it was really shocking, the amount of optimism or need for the Seattle Boat Show. And then we're also getting a lot of optimism from the Seattle Seahawks with the stadium. They too wanted to get NFL fans into that stadium, and they were investing a significant amount of money for HEPA filters and hand sanitation stations and upgrades to the restrooms and whatnot. So as a result, we weren't able to think about canceling the show in person until early in November. So third quarter, boat sales come roaring back. For the quarter, boat sales were up 36% in units, 50% in value, and all types of participation was up. I was on the Clean Vessel Act with Washington State Parks Grant Review Group earlier this year, and pump out stations in the San Juan Islands were reporting triple the pump out service. You know, Roche Harbor, Deer Harbor, Lopez Island. Recreational fishing license sales from Department of Fish and Wildlife were up 9% for Washington residents last year. So lots and lots of boating activity. And that's been the real silver lining, we all know, for COVID this year. So sliding into 2020, fourth quarter, something that I am very proud of, and I know Jennifer Higgins, our Director of Finance is, and our full board is, but NMTA received its 21st consecutive clean audit from Clark Nuber. And really proud of that. We have about a $3 million budget that we work on, and there's a lot of money coming in and coming out with our big events. And just really proud that we had our 21st consecutive clean audit by Clark Nuber. So I think we should have Amina Kamali in the side room, so we can have Amina come on in. And you know, this year, as I said, our budget. Hi there, Amina. Welcome. So as I said, our budget was very different this year, and we were going to be spending as much as 40%, $680,000 from our reserves this year. So Amina is with Wells Fargo Advisors, a sponsor tonight, and Amina sits in on all of our finance committee meetings and once a year presents to the full board. And we were having a lot of talk with you, Amina, on how to adjust our portfolio this year, you know, our stocks versus our bonds or versus our cash. So we have an investment policy statement. Can you just kind of in a nutshell describe to the members how you handled that or what you recommended to the Finance Committee?
Yeah, sure. Hi, George. Hi, everyone. Well, you know, it's been both a real pleasure and an honor to work with the board and the Finance Committee. I would say that the key to managing NMTA's investment funds has been to follow and be guided by the investment policy statement, which has meant that we were not forced to react when we had the steepest and the fastest decline in the market. I mean, it's hard to imagine that it was only over a year ago that the market fell 35% in 33 days. That was the fastest decline ever. But we weren't caught off guard, and we were not forced to react to the situation because we had ample cash to manage the downturn. And as the market recovered, we navigated the rough waters, and as the market recovered, you know, we had leaned on high quality equity portfolio for growth and income, which we were able to use to continue to get the performance. And also, I mean, you know, the objective for the NMTA investment fund is capital preservation with some growth. Now, in the current environment where we do not have bonds paying anything with zero interest rates, it's hard to get interest from CDs and bonds. We did move to a high quality equity fund, but because we had enough cash for a rainy day, we were able to manage the rough waters. So we're in good shape, and you know, we were able to come basically on the other side with minimal or no damage actually, and the market has, of course, recovered and gone higher from where we were last year. So that's what we've been able to do: follow the investment policy statement, have a disciplined approach, and make some opportunistic and tactical moves, which sometimes non-traditional, but you know, provide us with the growth and capital preservation opportunity.
Well, thank you, Amina. The board and executive committee trust you immensely. So I've got your contact information up on the slide. Thank you for being a sponsor tonight. Would Wells Fargo Advisors be available to do this sort of work for NMTA members?
Yes, absolutely. We are available to help NMTA members, and you know, you can reach out to me or give me an email. send me an email, give me a call, or reach out to me via the contact information, and we'd be happy to.
All right, wonderful. Thank you, Amina, and look forward to seeing you at one of the Finance Committee meetings or one of our upcoming budget lunch meetings.
That sounds great.
All right. So, so Jennifer Higgins, our Director of Finance, per our bylaws and what we do every year, NMTA members can go see our NMTA financial statement at www.nmta.net. You can click on the members only section, go down to the financial statements, and the password is 20member21 in lowercase. You can go see there. If we were in person, Jen would be in the back of the room handing these out to you, but that's how you get to them online here at the meeting. And if you have trouble getting a hold of that, an email to info@nmta.net, and we can help get that to you. We could send it to you as a PDF. So, so also in the fourth quarter, in addition to the audit, is when we officially pivoted from a in-person Seattle Boat Show to a virtual, all virtual show. We did that announcement on Monday, November 3rd, which was a big deal. And by November 3rd, in COVID, it was pretty clear that we were going to make that move. It was really notable that in the end, there was only 3 major boat shows in North America that tried this. It was the Seattle Boat Show, the Toronto Boat Show, and the Cleveland Boat Show. And we've had a lot of talk with our friends in Toronto and Cleveland about what they did, and it was interesting. They did a lot of things similar. We did some things different, and I'll talk about that in a little bit more. So in the end, for fourth quarter boat sales, normally a pretty quiet time for boat sales here in the Northwest, but new boat sales were up 31% and 23% in value. So here's what it looks like for the year for the new boat sales. You can see the orange line where it dropped down during the stay home, stay healthy order, but then it shot right up over the top. And in the end, for 2020, new boat sales were up 12% in units and 16% in value. And I think there were a couple of months, particularly June and July, where new boat sales were up 44 and 46% respectively. You can see those orange dots way up there. And it was notable that Peter and I were contacted by different state agencies, different environmental groups, saying, oh my gosh, with that many extra boats now in the fleet here in Washington State, surely if we regulate them some more, things will be better the way we see the world. And, you know, I'm love it if new boat sales were up for 24% or 40%, but, you know, they were up 12%. And I think Peter and I worked really hard to sort of tamp down some of the exuberance that the media was picking up, that boating was, you know, on fire, so to speak. So the numbers are, thanks to Sea Grant, 12% increase in registrations for 2020. And then something also we pay attention to that's very important is what did the new brokerage registrations look like? And you know, a lot of talk out there about availability of good inventory and that sort of thing. For 2020, new brokerage registrations were up 7.8% with an increase in value by 23%, again, thanks to Sea Grant. And then if you look back in time, all the way back to 2003, ever since we started working with Sea Grant, you can see that last year we had 6,805 new registered boats in 2020 compared to 6,053, but we're still not at the high water mark where we were in pre-recession 2007, 2008 with 10,000 boats registered. So that's how we wrapped up things for calendar year 2020. So then we turned the corner, flipped the calendar into January 2021, and we did our big, audacious Seattle Boat Show Connected. And it was very reminiscent of my very, very first Seattle Boat Show when we went from the Kingdome to what was then called the Stadium Exhibition Center, a round show into a square box. We reinvented the Seattle Boat Show. And in the end, we had 218 member businesses participate. And one of the early decisions we made as staff and with the Boat Show Committee is we were going to commit to the same level of advertising as we did the year before and the year before and the year before, which is $250,000. And it's maybe not common for a show producer like NMTA to run around and tell the world that they spent $250,000 advertising, but we wanted to let the members know we were not going to cut any corners, and the word was going to get out that the Seattle Boat Show was big and it was strong and it was happening. And in the end, on those 4 show days, the 28th, the 29th, the 30th, and the 31st, We had over 300,000 unique people come to that website. So as I like to say, and James Baker, our board chair, likes to say, we really stirred things up. And I think you can see it in the sales data. We sold tickets in all 50 states. We pre-recorded 83 boating, fishing, and cruising seminars. Peter hosted 34 hours of live boat show TV. We had 594 boats on display, 364 accessories on display, over 7,500 images uploaded. It was a big deal. It was a lot of work. Hats off to the NMTA staff, all of our partners behind the scene that helped us pull that off. And it was very, very successful. Pause. That said, I know it wasn't perfectly successful for all those 218 businesses. There were some businesses that did fabulously well, and then there were some businesses that didn't do so well. So I know that. That said, I hope we never have to do a 100% virtual show again. And there's some things that we learned in 2021 that we can carry into 2022, particular Boat Show TV and all of the pre-recorded seminars that we had people viewing from all across the globe, those seminars that are interested in boating here in the Northwest. So our tagline was start online, end up on the water. And we did have a few people that didn't quite understand that and actually showed up at the stadium during those four show days. In the first quarter, NMTA received 2 payroll protection plan loans as part of the CARES Act. Interesting, we're a 501c6 organization, means we can lobby, get the things that we do get done by lobbying, but we were not eligible in the original version of the CARES Act to receive PPP loans. So I guess you could say we received them late. We received 2 loans in the first quarter, and that's allowed us to only spend 20% of the reserves this year. And then in first quarter, boat sales were up 35% and 65% in value. You can see that on the graph there. And then I'm going to switch now over to some major accomplishments we've had in the legislative this session here in the second quarter. And Shane, you could bring Peter up on screen because he deserves a lot of the credit here too. Just by now, Peter, was it 2, maybe 3 weeks ago that we got a word from you and Cliff Webster that the Senate Transportation Committee was put an excise tax on boats. They wanted to double it. Andrea mentioned that a little bit here at the beginning. But we went to work and hand in glove with the Recreational Boating Association of Washington, good work by you, Cliff Webster, Doug Levy, and we activated our voter base, our members with your voter voice that we sent out, and then we uncommonly or unprecedented, we used our Seattle Boat Show email database. And in the end, how many emails were sent to how many legislators?
Yeah, we had over 17,000 emails sent. Over 5,500 voters and marine businesses participated, and we were able to really get the grassroots activated.
And then, having close personal relationships with these senators like you and Cliff do, receiving phone calls and text messages from, in the end, it was withdrawn from the bill. And the excise tax is gone. And Andrea talked about that. But that, I think, goes into perhaps the NMTA Hall of Fame for one of the fastest, best work of NMTA. So hats off to you. And then you want to talk about the skipper charter bill and maybe the boatyard permit?
Yeah, I'm not sure if my mic is working. Is it working, guys?
All right. So it looks like we may not have Peter's mic working. So
a little technical difficulties. This is the beauty of
I'll talk about the boatyard.
Show here, George. Welcome to my world.
I'll talk about the boatyard permit. So, so right now we have 41 boatyards in the state of Washington that operate under something called an NPDES federal permit, and we've been operating under that for 5 and 10 years. And 5 years ago and 10 years ago, the state said that permit met water quality standards.
Right.
And now. A draft permit came out about 4 weeks ago that says, nope, we have to make that permit 90% more difficult on our 48 member boatyards. So it used to be, don't want to get all technical here, one benchmark.
150 parts per billion, and they're looking at making it down to 15 parts per billion. Yep.
And so we use an environmental attorney, Brad Dahl, environmental engineer, Barry Kellums, Peter, Brian, Barry, myself, some input from the Boatyard Committee, draft a 14-page letter, send that off to Department of Ecology, doing the best we can to make the case that permit is just fine the way it is.
And ongoing conversations with key staff that are making decisions at Ecology right there at the table for you every day of the week. We've been answering questions and trying to make sure that we're putting ourselves in the best position to get the real permit that's actually attainable for our members. So we'll know that shortly. They're responding to comments, and we'll be sharing that with you all too.
You want to talk about the skipper charter bill?
Sure,
Big
yeah,
win
this was
there?
a great bill. This is a great win for our member businesses, in particular those that like to work on chartered vessels where the skipper is provided. Currently, we don't allow that in our state, believe it or not. But now we can. The Governor Inslee has until May 18th to sign that important piece of legislation, and that will allow for visiting vessels to charter in our state where the captain or crew are provided.
All right, well, you're on a roll. How about marina permitting?
Keep them coming. Marina permitting, we were on a roll. So actually this one's been a real fly in the ointment since 2018. That's why Logan and I went to Washington, D.C. Currently, we are stalled with hats off to National Marine Fisheries Service. They've effectively shut down the entire marine industry, recreational, commercial, you name them. They're no longer allowed to be permitted because of some guidance that came out in 2018, but we are continuing to advocate and see if we can unhinge that right now. So stay tuned, and hopefully next annual meeting we'll have some really important news to share.
Yeah, so your membership dues don't just pay NMTA overhead or NMTA staff. We have to go out and hire smart people to help us, whether that's an environmental attorney or an environmental engineer. We went out and hired one of the best natural resource lobbyists in the state and on a federal level to help us with this, and we think Tim's moved the cheese for us. And
the cheese was certainly moved, and we're trying to chase it down, and Tim is putting us in a position to succeed, and that's an ongoing issue. We're meeting with the Department of Natural Resources, which we weren't with as effectively as we are now, thanks to Tim's important work.
Yeah, so there's 48 marina projects stalled right now in Puget Sound, so we really need to get that fixed. Not there yet, but we're going to get there.
That's right.
So salmon fishing opportunity for those that like to salmon fish or their business depends on it. We just came out of north of Falcon, and the salmon seasons are going to look just like they did a year ago. For a lot of people, that's adequate. A lot of summer fishing, but we lost our winter salmon fishing. For a deep dive on salmon fishing in north of Falcon, we're going to have a fish committee meeting in 2 weeks. I'll put that up on one of my closing slides, and hopefully if that interests you can attend. And then Carl Burke, our sport fishing lobbyist, had a huge win with the legislature earlier this week, which basically is a budget proviso that's going to reinforce the importance of marked selective fishing on the Columbia River and essentially getting non-tribal commercial gill nets out of the main stem of the Columbia River. So it's something that Carl and the Coastal Conservation Association and National Northwest Sport Fishing Industry Association have been working on tirelessly for 12 years.
12 years. I mean, you can imagine the elation that was felt around the entire state when that news came out, when the governor and the legislature passed the operating budget. Actually, the governor needs to sign it still, so we are continuing to advocate and lobby that stays in there. But yeah, good stuff coming out of the recreational fishing side of the house.
Yeah, got to play the long game, and they did. Okay, so Government Affairs Committee is going to meet next week or next month, and as is the Boatyard Committee. We'll have those on one of the later slides here so people can come in and see those. So some more housekeeping, if you will, for the second quarter is board elections. Ballots are going to be available on May 1st, and we earlier showed the 6 candidates that would like to serve on the board for 3 open seats for 3 3-year terms. But we've also had a bylaw review committee chaired by Alex Sutter, and we reviewed the bylaws, and we've made some updates. You know, maybe we do it every 3 years. I guess you could say we've sort of modernized the bylaws and the way you talk about email communication and video conference rather than teleconference. So we've just some housekeeping modernization, and perhaps one of the most notable things is we think it's a good idea to have the annual meeting in the second quarter of the calendar year rather than the fourth quarter. And I really look forward to a year from now where we're doing this in person, maybe on the grass of Seattle Yacht Club or on the grass at Elliott Bay Marina. We can have an annual meeting like this in person. So the vote to approve the bylaws will be in the board election packet that you will see on May 1st. So then finally, we are going to get back in the game of an in-person event called the Anacortes Boat and Yacht Spring Sale. It's going to be May 21st and 22nd up at our favorite place, Cap Sandy Marina in Anacortes. And in our contact with the governor's office, person, John Snyder, who looks after outdoor recreation, he said the Anacortes Boat and Yacht Show would be a perfect event for the phase we're in right now. So Katie McPhail, our show director, sent out applications a few weeks ago. We've got 26 businesses signed up with 66 boats. We're gonna just put one boat into one finger pier, so it's naturally socially distanced. So we have a room for 60 boats. Katie tells me she'll actually be able to put in 66 and follow our guidelines, but she is keeping a small waiting list and really looking forward to kind of getting back in the game with an in-person show. And then looking ahead, Seattle Boat Show Live Season 2 kicks off tonight.
That's
Peter's
right.
going to be there at 7 o'clock.
7 o'clock. Openforboating.com. You can register and get the link.
And then Lisa Samuelson with Samuelson Communications was approved by our Grow Boating Committee to continue doing Grow Boating earned media this summer. I like to say if there's a positive news story about recreational boating here in the Northwest, it starts with the NMTA. I don't think that's an exaggeration. And it often starts with Lisa Samuelson. So she will be working closely with King 5, Evening Magazine, and every summer Lisa's been able to generate probably 14 new original segments on boating, plus another dozen or so that re-air from previous work with Evening Magazine. Grow Boating Committee, staffed by Karsten McIntosh, approved a new idea. You may remember the Northwest Salmon Derby Series we ran for 16 years, where derbies moved around different parts of the state. We're going to try and do something less fishing related, and it's going to be called pontoons. So we'll have a pontoon boat with a live band on it, and it will go to 6 marinas, 3 on the saltwater, 3 on freshwater this summer to get things started. That's how the Derby Series started. And you can see the new logo that we just came up with this afternoon from Bullseye Creative. And the concert series will move from marina to marina and bring people in a socially distanced way down to their boats, into their fairways, and it's an event that the marinas can promote. Membership renewal invoices went out a week ago, so like to think that we've made a good case here why your membership is a value bargain at $475. I think Kelly Hawley said it should actually be more. I'm going to be charged. I'm going to be talking to Kelly later. We'll have to fix his invoice.
Yeah.
So membership renewals are out right now. They're due on June 30th.
I think he said he wants to pay more.
Oh, he wants to pay more.
Yeah, that's not a problem.
So then, for the NFL fans in the room, the NFL announced about 4 weeks ago they're going to go to a 17-game season, which is going to move the season back a week. So the Seattle Boat Show is now going to be Friday, February 4th to Saturday, February 12th. I'm going to say it's the latest Seattle Boat Show in the last 40 years. So we are moving later. So what that does is puts us just 3 days before the Miami Boat Show opens up. And that'll partly be a good segue into our keynote speaker, Frank Hugelmeyer, here. So let me just wrap up with some upcoming meetings. We've got our Government Affairs Committee meeting staffed by Peter, May 6th at 10 a.m. Go over a legislative session recap with our lobbyist, Cliff Webster. Fish Committee is going to meet on May 12th at 2 p.m. We're going to get a legislative recap from our lobbyist, Carl Burke. I call him our Salmon Policy Special Agent, Pat Patillo, former WDFW staff, on what happened at North of Falcon, and then an update from a separate entity called Fish Northwest, Brett Rawson, and what they're working with Department of Fish and Wildlife. And then Grow Boating Committee is May 13th at 9 a.m., staffed by Karsten McIntosh. And these are all on Zoom, by the way. These are all on Zoom right now. And then Super Yacht Committee, staffed by Peter, chaired by Monique Weber, is going to be May 11th at 10 a.m. And then Boatyard Committee, TBD, but coming up.
That's right. Keep checking that website.
Check that website. And an update on the Boatyard permit. So there you go. There's the slides for the Boatyard. So big thank you to our sponsors, Wells Fargo, Capital Benefit Service, Fisheries Supply. And we're just a little bit behind schedule, not too bad. So is Frank Hugelmeyer in the green room?
There he is.
There he is. Hi there, Frank.
How you doing, George? It's good to see you.
Nice to see you, sir. Welcome. Peter's on the screen here, too.
Hey, Frank.
Hi there, Peter. How are you?
Doing well. We just, this is a tough act to follow there, Frank. George had the great fortune to brag about all of our stuff that we're so proud of. So, yeah, a lot to share there.
You guys did a great job. I want to really congratulate you. I just listening to the journey virtually every trade association in the business, because they weren't able to get the COVID relief, was in a very similar situation. And so you've done a terrific job. I don't know if everybody knows, I was scheduled to speak a year ago, and you were one of the first events. Unfortunately, I had to cancel, and George and I got to meet on my very first day as president, when I joined early to kind of do an onboarding. And then I took over in October, and then had 6 months before everything was shut down. So it's been quite a first year. And I'm just glad that I got a chance to be out in the Northwest with you, George, and with your great team. Really impressive what you've done through a very, very difficult period. So
yeah, so just I'll just share with the members. So it was the National Marine Trade Council meeting, and NMTA was hosting it in Anacortes. So that was Frank's introduction, I guess, to the National Marine Trade Council, and it was a real honor to have you there, and good timing. And I think you were pretty smitten with what you saw here in the Northwest. And then you and I started talking about fishing together. That's really what I want to talk about with Frank.
COVID got in the way of all of our grand steelhead fishing plans.
Yeah, we had grand plans for a year ago. So we'll take a rain check on that fishing, but I appreciate you following through, being here today. Talk about what's going on at NMMA and what the national perspective looks like.
Yeah, I'm going to share my screen here if I can. So let me see if I get this up. Let me know. Host is disabled screen sharing, so I need to be allowed.
We're still running that background check, Frank.
Yeah. I think it's going to fail. So while Alicia's disabling my screen sharing, I think it might be helpful for everyone to know how I got to where I am with NMMA. I joined the association last year, a year and a half ago, and before that I was for 4 years the president of the RV Industry Association, which also has had quite a run during this past year, and also was running the very well-known and successful Go RVing campaign. And then, but I got into boating as a child early on. I came from a boating family. My parents owned a Seabird. My grandparents owned a Pembroke. My uncle had a Cobia. My grandfather had a Chris Craft. There was an Egg Harbor and a Robalo in the family, and we literally would go over. I grew up on Long Island in New York, and we would go to Fire Island, literally live over on the beach as a family. My father put a camper back on the back of the sport fishing Seabird, a 28-foot, and a family of 5 kids, and my parents basically spent all summer on Fire Island, and just fell in love with the lifestyle. So the opportunity to come back to the marine industry, give back what I've learned in the outdoor industry. I was also the CEO and president, a longtime president of the Outdoor Industry Association, which are the companies like REI and Columbia, North Face, Patagonia, etc. So I've been in the outdoor space, I've been in the RV space, and now I'm in the boating space, and that's really a journey back home for me, and where my personal passion is, because I'm an avid fly fisherman. And if I've got a chance to take a break, I'm standing on the front of a boat with a fly rod in my hand, chasing tarpon or something similar around the world. So
well, welcome back into the briar patch.
Yeah,
right.
Well, let's see if this. Let's see if
Alicia says the share screen should be working.
All right, there we go. I see it now. So, can you see my screen, everyone?
We see your slides. State of the recreational boating and marine industry.
Yeah. So I'm gonna run through a slideshow that and George, a lot of what you shared is gonna be here. So I'm gonna just kind of touch on the macro national trends that we've been seeing, and then try and get to the discussion, the Q&A, so we can have a back and forth with the members. who again, I really wish I was in person. That's what I like to do most. But one of the things that I want to really focus on just to start, so everyone is aware, I've spent probably the last 20 years of my career working with companies like REI and others to define and establish and measure for the first time in history outdoor recreation economy. And we started that at Outdoor Industry Association. And 4 years ago, for the very first time, the federal government measured outdoor recreation as an industry sector. So think about this. Think about how long you've been in business and you haven't been thought of as an economic sector large enough to measure. But we knew all anecdotally that we were a very significant portion, but we never had the data. But the Bureau of Economic Analysis, 4 years ago, working with all of the different associations across the country, measured it for the very first time. And what they found was astounding. We're a $788 billion annual industry. We support 5.2 million jobs, and that's 3.3% of all employment in the United States. And we drive 2.1% of the US GDP. And for you to really understand the size of that, it's the same size as telecommunications. It's larger than agriculture, which even has a Department of Agriculture, an agency of its own in the federal government. We're a big, big business. And this goes everything from skiing to hiking to camping to paddling to boating and fishing. Our sector is a $170 billion ecosystem. That's from marinas to boat manufacturers to dealers to fishermen and the fishing industry. We're a major, major economic sector. And in fact, we're the #1 and the largest segment of that outdoor recreation economy. What's fascinating is this economy was outpacing the growth of the US economy before COVID. And as we all know, yeah, we had a couple of months of shutdown, but during COVID, and right now in our current state, we're one of the industry sectors that is holding up the US economy. We've grown when so many others have shrunk. So we are even bigger than the numbers that I'm showing you, and even more important this year, even after we were outpacing the growth of the US economy before the pandemic began. These are really foundational information that you need to know exists. It's on the Department of Commerce website. It's the Bureau of Economic Analysis, and you type in outdoor recreation, and you can find your state-by-state data and jobs data and GDP contribution by the state across the entire country. Now, that was introduced for the first time 2 years ago. When you look at this data in terms of the marine industry, just in the Washington state area, the Northwest, you've got 6.9 billion of annual economic impact. You've got 241,000 boats that are registered in the area. You support 22,000 jobs and over almost 1,500 businesses. It's a large portion, and that's when you look at the multiplier effect, it's even more. As we look at how boat sales were impacting the national sales structure and the economy that I was just saying, this past year, as we know, we saw a big leap as social distancing, close to home, safety really became a major concern. But I think the biggest aha in all of this is we discovered who our competition is. Because in the past, you'd have competition for international travel. You'd have competition for an overscheduled family who's going to soccer games, football games, theater, music festivals, cruise ships, amusement parks. We had a lot of competition for time and mind share, and that went away this year. And once people had time, they went back to outdoor recreation, and particularly for recreational fishing and boating in droves. And you already heard a lot of that data and the local data from George about this, but it happened on a national scale, and it happened across every major outdoor recreation activity sector in the country. First-time buyers also were on the rise. We had 100,000 new people who bought their very first boat, which was a very exciting influx of new buyers, which is 30% of all the buyers of this past year. That's a great sign for us to take more of these buyers on a journey of good, better, best, and keep them just like the RV industry, the auto industry does, get them into a brand and take them on that journey. This group was also much more diverse, more women diverse, and so these are all good signs for the industry as a whole going forward. Growth across all of the categories was every segment. Yachts actually started slowly, but then they picked up very quickly. But when you look to the one side where you see personal watercraft and freshwater fish, those are the high volume pontoon. Those are the high volume products. Even those were almost double digit. When you get to towboats, the young, new entry-level boats for runabouts, for entry-level and towboats, which are more exciting, obviously more expensive, but you had a lot of new young buyers coming into that space. And look at the numbers that have been coming in around this growth of segments, 20% this past year, and 19 in the cruiser segment, 14 all of the in the yacht segment, which obviously are very strong categories in the Northwest. Now, more than 200,000 boats were built. We had over 310,000 boats sold. That's a 100,000 boat gap this past year. We saw a significant decrease in our overall inventory in the country, and that's actually getting worse right now. You can see that new boat sales, this is the latest data, it just came off the press today, and I was able to pop this in so that you could see what is happening. But if you look to just that October, November, and December timeframe, the sales whole is still very strong. We're seeing strong registrations across the country, continuing to be significantly higher than last year. But you can see that shipments of boats are significantly lower than where they were and need to be for us to really take advantage of the market opportunities that we see in front of us. So that means that dealer inventories, and this should be a surprise to no one on this call, have been the leanest they've ever been. And we expect to see that to continue really for the foreseeable future. Unfortunately, 74% of boat builders are facing significant product shortages. And these are supply shortages, parts. And I'll explain why that's happening right now. And the order books on average are 30 weeks out across the entire industry. So 7.5 months before you can get a new boat that's not claimed in some way. Right now, we're simply just not keeping pace with the demand. That's largely driven because of our supply chain resiliency. If you think about COVID when it first hit, everyone across the globe, China, manufacturers to American businesses, all contracted as quickly as they could, canceled orders, reduced what they could plan for going forward. And then 2 months later, certainly our industry and many others, we're going right back to going, you know what, I chose poorly. And in fact, I don't need what I was getting. I need more than what I was getting. And everyone was doing that in manufacturing sectors across the globe. And you still had a 3-month delay coming out of China because they had a long shutdown that did shut and close and delay raw material supply in that region, which is which is critical as an input into any manufacturing process. We also had the storms that occurred down in Texas that really disrupted a lot of chemical factories, which make things like plastics and foams. And we're seeing those shortages across the marine industry as well as the car industry right now. And they had almost a 3-month disruption because the pipes that froze had to be dug up. They cooled the chemical process, and they had to then pressure test those, then replace those pipes, find them because they were all underground where the leak was, and then get back online. And so we have seen not only significant supply chain disruptions in Asia, we've seen supply chain disruptions in raw materials in Texas, and we've also seen, because COVID has been so challenging in terms of retaining labor and keeping labor healthy and folks feeling safe, that even at ports, we've got a lot of manufacturers right now of suppliers who have products sitting off the coasts, the West Coast of America, not being able to get into port because there's simply not enough offboarding for those containers. So it's a systemic issue in the country. The President Biden has actually issued an executive order to study the issue and how we can rectify it. That's happening as we speak. But it tells us a lot as to how supply chain constraints, not only today due to COVID and the current pull of so many consumers having a new stimulus check in their pocket and wanting to spend it on recreational products. And in fact, you'll see there's actually some data that shows that millions of Americans are going to be planning to spend those hard-earned those stimulus checks and their hard-earned dollars on recreational equipment going forward. Our 2 top priorities throughout this has been advocacy, and George explained a lot of what he was doing at the local level. We were also doing at the national level in terms of COVID relief for our members, and really focusing on opening access so that we could stay in business. The other piece of this has been market development, and I'll go through the 2 main areas that we're focusing on right now in our strategic priorities. From an advocacy standpoint, we focus on 5 main core buckets: lobbying, federal, international, and of course, supporting all of the state efforts of the great MTAs. Building the big coalitions, and we've been a leader of building the Outdoor Recreation Roundtable, which has really become the spokesperson for that giant outdoor recreation economy. And NMMA is one of the cornerstone groups leading that. In fact, I'm the vice chair, one of the co-founders. I co-founded it with Tom Damrick when I was at RVIA, at the RV Industry Association. And next year I'll become the chairman for 2 years. So marine industry is really going to be driving those coalitions, but we also belong obviously to all of the national fishing coalitions as well as business groups. We focus on public relations and public affairs, really driving communications around these issues, grassroots activation of all of the people who attend our boat shows and how we can activate them, as well as the fundraising and the PAC that we organize nationally. The opportunities right now, we still see opportunities to support the industry on economic relief, and we'll continue to do so. George and his team, we just got our own PPP COVID relief at NMMA just this past month. And that's going to help us continue to rebuild and stand up the disrupted boat show portfolio in all of the major markets that we own. Trade and tariffs, these are another big issue. We've got right now a 25% punitive duty, a retaliatory tariff from the steel and aluminum trade wars that were started by the Trump administration. And those tariffs from the EU on American-made product are about to go to 50% tariffs on all American-made boats beginning in June 1. And so we're very focused on making sure that made in America products are not boxed out due to old trade wars. And we are seeing some positive progress there, but it's getting very close to it moving up to 50% right now. And we're hopeful that we're able to avoid that situation. Recreation infrastructure is a huge opportunity at the moment because we just passed historic legislation last year, the Great American Outdoors Act, which drives over $6 billion into American infrastructure and recreation-based infrastructure, and that means more ramps and better repaired marine facilities and areas around the country, particularly on public lands and waters, as well as another $900 million of annual funding for the Land and Water Conservation Fund. And that's an opportunity for states like Washington to say, hey, I have an infrastructure project that I want to do. And that provides a federal matching grant mechanism for a state to double its money and actually get that infrastructure done. And that was put in place many years ago by the Kennedy administration. It is funded and created infrastructure around the entire country. And every county in America has benefited from this. So if you've got an area where you need more infrastructure or need a new ramp built, you can work with a local municipality, your county, as well as your state to actually go and get those matching dollars in the Land and Water Conservation Fund. And that's $900 million a year of grant dollars, state grant dollars around the country. We now see obviously real environmental regulations and threats with the new administration. Climate is the major, one of the four major pillars of the Biden administration. And you're going to see more emissions oriented type of regulations being proposed, and we're getting very close to the administration as quickly as we can so that we can try to ensure that the recreational boating industry is not impacted. And that obviously is going to include additional business regulations and obviously the tax changes that were proposed even last night in the president's address. And then there's access restrictions, and we're seeing this is a real battle around the country. Largely due to the wake boat phenomena and that 20% growth that we're seeing. But it's bigger than that because we're seeing all of the people who have had boats have gone back into the aftermarket, have repaired those boats, looked to get them repaired, gotten them back out on the water, and we just have more people on the water. And that's going to create user conflicts. And that's going to create people who do not want motorized recreation in their area to try to restrict that access. And if they get a friendly ear at a state level or at a local level, we're going to have to be aggressive to protect the access for the boating industry, and we will be. Couple other access considerations is there's a new piece of legislation that's been moving around. In California, it was proposed. Other states are looking at this. The federal government and the Biden administration are also looking to make this part of their environmental platform. And the goal is to preserve 30% of land and 30% of water by 2030. And what we're focused on is we're fine with conservation provided it does not impact access to waterways and fisheries. We already have crowded waterways. We already are seeing a increase in activity and usage. We are the single largest driver of the outdoor recreation economy. And 2.1% of the US GDP. We've been one of the key segments that have been holding up the US economy. Do not cut off our access. You will cut off not only the lifestyle, but you'll cut off a major economic engine, not only nationally, but in states around the country. You'll impact entrepreneurial businesses, and it'll be a loss of jobs. So we'll be protecting that very strongly. We're also seeing, as we mentioned earlier, issues related to aquatic invasive species and storm resiliency that we're looking to really drive those dollars in the Great American Outdoors Act to help resolve a lot of these issues. And so we're focused on implementing that $6 billion investment approved by Congress last year and signed by President Trump, and driving it into marine based green infrastructure and green and blue infrastructure. When we look at market and how the market is running, we're seeing a very exciting start to the year, as George also referred. We're seeing 25% increases in boat show attendance across the country. We've seen 60% increases year over year in Discover Boating. We've seen major shifts in the younger and in gender diversity in terms of next generation, in terms of our digital platforms. We're seeing massive increases in our Instagram engagements. And that really goes to sort of our bigger strategic opportunities as we go forward, because we are seeing record interest in boating. And you can see here, this shows really the last 5 years of Google Analytics and interest in boating search terms. And if you look to the left, you can see we sort of just kind of moderate between that 30 to 40%, right around the 35 point mark in terms of the mean here in the index, the search index that we measure. And you're now seeing it over 50%, both before the pandemic, obviously saw sort of a seasonal drop a little bit earlier during the winter, and we're right back as the season starts to kick in, over a significant increase over where we've seen interest and searching around boats from the consumer standpoint. And 2.6, I mentioned this earlier, 2.6 million households have said they're going to spend their stimulus check on recreational products. That's a huge opportunity for everyone on this call. That brings us really to the get on board and the Discover Boating work that we're doing and our strategy long-term for market development. And last year we worked with RBFF and MRAA to do, for the first time, a joint campaign to activate people to get on board. And this happened right in the heart of the pandemic, to remind people that that the water was open, and to get on board and come. And we saw record activity on Discover Boating. And obviously we also saw record activity within the industry as well. That campaign, by the way, reached over 2 billion impressions last year, and it was a PSA campaign. But this really leads us into more of the unified or integrated strategy that we're going forward with at NMMA as we proceed with Discover Boating. When we think about going back to the issue that we've been operating right now and winning in the market because we haven't had competition, but the people who've been disrupted, the airlines, the cruise ships, the amusement parks, movie theaters, whatever activity it is, leisure activity that's been disrupted, is going to want their market share back, and they're going to come back with a vengeance. Campaigns like this are already being organized by other trade industry sectors, and the recreational boating and fishing industry needs to be ready. So the first thing that we're doing is we've been operating with, the NMMA has been operating with Progressive as our title sponsor, and we're very grateful for that. And we want them to continue to be a supporter for the industry and intend to. But we've been spending, tens of millions of dollars over in the Discover Boating side. We've been spending tens of $millions over in the NMA boat show side. And if we aggregated that and integrated that together, we would be louder just with that strategic move than the Go RVing campaign. We would be bigger than the Go RVing campaign in America. This will become the biggest campaign compared to any other lifestyle sector, recreational lifestyle sector in the country. And our strategy really is, and what we'd like to see in the long term, is for every major market to really become Discover Boating New York, Discover Boating Chicago, Discover Boating Miami. And that really led to why we renegotiated the Miami situation. Miami in 2022, in February, will become the first Discover Boating Miami show. It will be Discover Boating Miami, that unified show that combines the Miami International Boat Show with the Miami Yacht Show and Super Yacht. It becomes the largest single boat show in the world, and it's going to be the major driver and cornerstone for us to be able to drive this strategy. But all of the NMA boat shows will have this, and our goal is to create a program, a licensing program that allows the members and the industry-owned MTAs to essentially also do that strategy, so that every time you're advertising Discover Boating or your show, you're actually amplifying the national campaign. Every time a boat show manufacturer who's exhibiting markets to their consumers, they're hitting the Discover Boating campaign. By unifying, connecting, and integrating all of boating's voice, we'll be louder than ever before, and we'll be able to compete with all these other sectors that are going to be coming after our market share. So I'm going to end really with some considerations for the future, which are things that I've been thinking about as I've come into the industry. And that really starts with the supply chain disruptions. We clearly need to look at how we can avoid supply chain disruptions going forward. We can see how devastating they are in terms of our ability to meet the market. If glass fiber in fiberglass or resin became disrupted, it would really put a halt to the whole industry. Emissions reduction to hybrid technology is going to be a big issue. We've got a lot of infrastructure that needs to be built. This is not a simple task as we start to green and you see climate change policies across the country and in states. We need to let people know how important we are from an economic standpoint, and that you can't just flip a switch and move to these hybrid technologies. And you also can't just charge up 20 miles offshore. We have different issues. And to be quite honest, if you're looking at carbon reduction, transportation, and airline and other industry sectors, we're de minimis compared to their output. And we already are in a way hybridized when you think about anything from sailboats to electric motors that are used for trolling. And I think you'll see that expand quickly. So we want to make sure that we really are able to manage our transition to a green economy and not be penalized as we move to a green economy. This also means conservation is a big issue, because much of conservation funding comes from excise taxes, our boat fuels, as well as gas fuels for transportation get driven into conservation and infrastructure funding. There is no replacement right now or consensus for how this funding model will be replaced as you go to a green economy, and that's going to be a big issue, and we're going to have to be at the table, and will be. Repair event cycle times is another issue. Right now, what I'm hearing from dealers is that they are, if a product is in stock, that they can repair that product on average somewhere between 30 to 60 days. That's not fast enough. I know this was a big focus on the RV industry to really reduce this down. If you look at being over 40 days, 30 to 60 days, If it's a new product, that's a significant problem because lemon laws are 30 days, and we don't want to be the poster child for the lemon law and legal industry. We've got to get our repair event cycle times down. Some of that's labor, but a lot of this right now is part inventory and our ability to be able to get a product repaired quickly. And we're seeing a big influx, obviously, of the aftermarket coming in. And so that's actually compounding the problem in the repair event cycle category. Chemicals management is another issue. Right now you're seeing the environmental policies I was mentioning as a risk earlier are connected to the Biden administration and what they're doing. Some of the chemicals that are in boat manufacturing are on that list. Again, and that could create another supply chain disruption. So these are issues we're watching. Aquatic invasive species and cradle-to-cradle design so that we are creating a sustainable industry are also areas that we're looking to make sure that we're staying ahead of the curve, and we've got a proactive action plan. That means that you're always much better to do something like this to yourself than have a regulator do it to you. And so these are the areas right now that we're really looking at. How do we build a strategic plan going forward and get ahead of these issues before they impact the industry? And with that, I'm just going to remind everyone that let's remember what we sell, which is just an incredible lifestyle. And that is what the American people have been looking for right now. We have been so critical to the health and wellness of the American public. We can play an important role in the economy going forward. And what we sell is joy and family and connection and relief. And that's been much needed in these past few days and this past year. And we can be very proud of the role we played this past year in helping the economy stay strong and Americans stay healthy.
Thanks, Frank, for that presentation. What a fantastic time to be in the country's $180 billion recreational boating industry, ecosystem, empire, and I'm so delighted to have you at the helm. Frank, I did have a question for you. There was a New York Times article yesterday, and I'm going to quote here, as the economy rebounds, manufacturers face new hurdles. U.S. factories are humming again, but the recovery speed has left many employers scrambling for workers or for parts. So my question is, how are you feeling about the upcoming silver tsunami, and what are the plans to get younger workers and diverse workers into the pipeline?
Yeah, you know what? I think this, George, this issue is an immigration issue, and an education issue. So it's a systemic issue. It's bigger than the industry, and I know it's been looked at. We were looking at this very closely in the RV industry as well. And the reality is most people are not training their kids to work in manufacturing. They're moving them into creative class jobs and other similar, they're sending them to college, and that's their right and to be expected. And the folks who want to come in and do that work, they're out there, but our immigration policy is not really aligned with what is needed when you look across all of the manufacturing sectors. And if I talk to my colleagues and comrades in the auto industry and in other manufacturing sectors, they're all seeing the exact same situation. If you go in the RV, that's there. If you go to the motorcycle industry, it's there. If you go to the auto, it's there. It's basically, we have a vocational, not everybody should go to college, and there needs to be better vocational path there, and then connection into these industry sectors like the recreational boating industry. And then the other is we need to be, obviously we don't want bad people or criminals let in across the border, or terrorists. No one wants that. But there are good workers who are ready and willing to do the type of jobs that we need in basic technical skills for repair, engine repair, boat repair, RV repair, et cetera. And we really do need to be looking at our immigration policy in that way. And I've had that conversation with the NMA board.
All right, well done, Frank. Question that I'm thinking about, it was 10 years ago that National Marine Manufacturers Association convened a group in Chicago. I think it became known as the Recreational Boating Leadership Council. I made me think of it with your mega issue slide there at the end. You know, it was at that meeting where we as an industry learned that we needed to attract a more younger, diverse audience into boating. And I think that's been a silver lining of COVID. What are you hearing, or what are your thoughts about retention and what we need to be doing as an industry? Because that was a big part of the RBLC, is, you know, setting boaters up for success on the water. Are all these new boaters having great experiences on the water right now, or is there more we can be doing?
George, I think you just hit the biggest issue probably facing the industry right now. Right, we have a tremendous consumer pull, but going into COVID, the industry had a history of losing 50% of new boat owners within 3 years. And if I was to show you a 40-year chart of the RV industry, you would see 40 years of this in terms of growth. If I showed you a 40-year chart of the boat industry, it was doing this. And it's really, you know, as I looked at this with fresh eyes coming into the industry and having looked at at what was happening in the RV industry, it is all about being able to get people into entry-level product, new product, and then taking them on that good, better, best journey. And the boat industry hasn't done it. And so what's happening is new boat buyers, a significant portion of new boat buyers, are going into driveway-to-driveway product. They are buying a product that they don't know if it even works or if there's a problem. It's a used product. And instead of going to a dealer and buying a entry-level product that is new and gives them a good experience. So I can tell you on the RV side, the dealers all have these used products on the lot, and then right near it is a new product that's only a little bit more. It's not equal in price, but you know, for not much more, you can get into that new product, and they're going to do it every time. And we don't have that opportunity right now. But when you look at the data, the national data, where is everybody going? They're coming into those entry-level product categories. And so, yeah, we've seen a very robust used market. We've seen a very robust new market. The people who have gone into that used market, it's very uncertain what type of experience they're going to have. And we're going to lose a lot of them, unfortunately, because they're not being connected to that dealer, and we're not focused enough on that consumer experience when they're first coming in. You remember the first time, if you bought a BMW and it didn't work, even if it was used, you'd have a bad taste in your mouth. And if we're taking 30 to 60 days to fix it, it's even worse. That cannot happen in this industry. And if we want to continue to see the industry grow, we just have to fix those two issues. And we're going to be watching a 40-year rise, just like the RV industry, because people love what we sell, and what we sell is special.
Frank, you really left a mark on me when I first met you, June 20th of 2019 in Anacortes. You raised your hand with a lot of courage and fortitude and asked, remind me again, are kayakers buying boats, and what's the data showing? And I'm just wondering if you've had a chance to dig into the progression of Joe's six-pack, Jane's six-pack. Do kayakers end up buying motorized vessels? Do boat shares lead to boat purchases? What have you found in your relatively new time at NMMA?
Well, I think they do both. Here's what I've learned. 8 out of 10 people who do an outdoor activity want to try another one. That means 8 out of 10 people who kayak want to try boating. 8 out of 10 people who bike want to try boating. 8 out of 10 who camp want to try boating. In fact, what we saw in the RV industry is 30% of RVers also own a boat. So the competition is not ourselves in outdoor recreation. In fact, the reason you see an REI so big and so successful, or an LL Bean, is because they recognize that you can be in a wide variety of different activities, and you can find yourself going on that journey and having those experiences and do it all. I've seen in my research in the past that people will do as many as 6 activities in their life, and end at one time. Yeah, they'll have a favorite, but they'll be doing 6 activities. So we want to be one of the 6 in the outdoor recreation space. And what we sell, whether it's fishing or scuba or snorkeling or skiing or wakeboarding, or just camping out at a dock in a harbor up in Anacortes. I mean, it's spectacular what we have as a product to sell. And you never are at a lack of having someone want to join you on a boat. And so we should be seeing this industry grow and grow and grow. We need to really understand what those barriers are. And if we're sending people to driveway boats, we're going to lose 50% a year like we have in the last 10 years. We got to get out of that business, and we'll be able to capture a lot of kayakers going that route.
Well, Frank, if NMTA had a Medal of Valor, I think we'd award it to you. I understand you had your second COVID shot today. Yeah. Happy National Immunization Week to you and yours.
Thank you.
As we bring this home tonight, if you have boating on your mind, don't worry. Don't refill your drink and grab dinner. I will be back at it in about 58 minutes. Openforboating.com as we kick off season 2 of Seattle Boat Show Live. So I'd love to have a nice audience this evening. I want to thank Frank Hugelmeyer. I want to thank all of our guests. I want to thank our award winners. I want to thank George for hanging out with me. I want to thank Ozzy for hosting us, and Doug and his team for making us look as good as we possibly could. So at this point, I'm going to say goodnight to everybody and see you in a few minutes on openforboating.com.
Well done. Thank you, Peter. Thank you, Frank.
Thank you. Thank you, Peter. Thank you. See you, George.